wars or starting the process for a prisoner release, then I think certainly both sides will probably call it something of a success.
And describing the goal as being predictability is already a change from previous administrations of both parties, frankly, going back to Bush, in each case where they talked about somehow reinvigorating the relationship, resetting it, whatever the verb is.
No talk of that.
And didn't get there. None of it. Much more
it's closer to the Cold War.
Attainable, perhaps.
The Cold War, when you had these summits, it was always an almost microscopic agenda, very small areas where both countries could agree to have a dialogue. Usually it was about nuclear weapons. Arms control may again be on the table today, but much more modest expectations. Nobody's talking about a reset here. President Putin has no interest in a reset. He is quite happy playing the arch villain and keeping the West as an adversary. You will not see him bowing and scraping in any way, and nor will you see President Biden bowing and scraping. He is also going to be delivering a very firm tone, making it clear that America does stand for these values and that President Putin's feet will be held to the fire when Russia does not.
And you saw that in something in their body language as they were first sitting down across from each other. So you cover the White House, Natasha. How has the Biden administration set up where it hopes to go here? And I assume you've been pressing them today. How are they beginning to spin expectations for what the end result is here?
Look, several White House officials are pretty much in the same position that we are, just kind of waiting to see what happens. They don't really know what to expect from Vladimir Putin because, of course, he is notoriously unpredictable. And that's part of the reason why they have been lowering expectations, because this could go really well or it could go really badly. We just don't know at this point. But I was talking to a former senior official on the NSC who dealt with Russia yesterday, and, she was saying, in this circumstance, you're pretty much damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's in response to critics who say that maybe this isn't the right time for a summit. But certain international observers will say, look, diplomacy here is a good response to the tensions that we're seeing at this point. And at the same time, Biden can differentiate himself from former President Donald Trump in the sense that he can actually approach President Putin and not be obsequious and not be deferential and actually say to him and convey to him what U.S. values are and what they expect of the Russians. So I think, this is pretty much a situation where the U.S. is set, the bar for the U.S. performance is also fairly low, especially after Helsinki in 2018. Biden, of course, will be expected to have some kind of, announcement to make or some kind of, during his press briefing, some kind of deliverable to announce. But at the same time, people aren't really expecting all that much because everyone knows that Vladimir Putin has not really changed who he is.
Understood. Well, we will be looking at that messaging as well, because that will be in sharp contrast to what we heard from President Trump in Helsinki when he stood next to Putin. Natasha, Clarissa, thanks so much. What effect, if any, will this summit have on Russia's disinformation campaigns targeting American politics, as well as its continued attacks on the U.S. political process? CNN chief political correspondent Dana Bash joins me now. This is an ongoing disinformation campaign by Russia, which sadly has some allies in the U.S., right? Because a lot of the rhetoric, the attacks you hear from Russia echoed by some in the U.S. and in the other way around. A lot of critiques of Biden you'll hear echoed by Russians. What can Biden do to counteract that in a summit like this, given that Putin has clearly decided it's in his interest?
Well, it's hard to imagine that he's actually going to stop Vladimir Putin from trying to meddle in U.S. elections because, as you have written about in your book, Jim,